Dennis Kucinich is a former Ohio congressman and Fox News contributor. Matt Schlapp is chairman of the American Conservative Union and former White House political director for President George W. Bush. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Great to be here, Shannon.
I mean, Matt, this is a horrific case, no matter how you look at it. And both these men have been charged as adults with some very serious offenses. But it renews this conversation that is already so passionate and heated. Are you worried that it gets sensationalized a little bit in the conversation?
Yeah, because this comes on the heels of knowing that the state of Maryland just voted or is passing legislation to make the state a sanctuary state. I mean, it's repulsive to see how people, liberals mostly across this country, are saying it's okay to harbor criminals. And I think the saddest thing, Shannon, of all is that our country is great and strong because of its past record of accepting immigrants, and I want it to continue to accept immigrants, but that will not happen if we continue to have these horrific crimes that really shock people to their core.
Yeah, and Congressman, to that point, do you worry that if there isn't a tougher crackdown on these kinds of cases that are such a small percentage of people who are here in this country, that it harms all the rest of those who are trying to come here legally and build a life and be contributing citizens?
That's a good point, Shannon, and there's two things that I'm concerned about here. First of all, that we need a broader discussion in our society about violence, and certainly about violence against women, which rape is one of the most offensive kinds of. And the second thing is, there's I think, what could be called the conservative principle of home rule. It's a sacred principle that that goes right back to the days when the Constitution was being formed. The 10th Amendment gives states the rights to make their own decisions. And we've got to be careful that we're not, in any case, licensing the federal government's big foot to come down on states or local communities.
But, Congressman, if the federal government has a duty to protect its citizens and to secure its borders, isn't that something they should be able to say to the states, listen, we have federal laws in place. You can't just decide which ones you're not going to enforce?
Well, you know, certainly wherever federal laws are covered, there are consequences for local communities. However, this is a deeper principle, and the question is whether or not communities have the right to determine that they can be sanctuary cities under state law, and whether states have the right to do that under the 10th Amendment.
But let's get, Congressman, let's get down to the facts here, which are what we're really saying is not, do I believe in the 10th Amendment? Yes, I think it should be big and strong, and I think what's not immediately talked about in the Constitution should be reserved to the states and to the people. But the real question is this: we're talking about people who have committed heinous crimes. It's been demonstrated that up to 40%, almost 40% of those people who have committed some of the most worst, some of the most flagrant crimes at the federal level are people who are here illegally. And the fact that a city or a state would harbor someone who would harm any of our children must end. We must make it, we must do something to protect our young women. I mean, our girls. This is disgusting. I know you're not for that. I wouldn't want to imply that. But sanctuary cities result in more Americans getting harmed.
You know, Matt raises a point, and that is, you know, when you're talking about felonies, I don't think there is truly any sanctuary for a felon. However, we also have to look at local communities and states under the Constitution do have the ability to make their own policies and laws. So there's a conflict here, and it's going to have to be resolved in the courts.
But, Congressman, how is there a conflict in not enforcing federal laws?
Oh, no, no, no. The conflict is in the broader policies of providing a compassion and a sanctuary, literally, not to protect felons, particularly the violent ones who should be brought to justice. And in this case, you know, where a violent crime is alleged to have been committed, there has to be justice maintained. But at the same time, we've got to remember the Constitution permits states to make their own laws with respect to their people.
But not on immigration.
Yeah, not on that issue. But, Matt, do you worry that a case as this, which is so gruesome, and you saw the parents who turned up at this meeting last night, and by the way, And that publicly people were not allowed into the meeting. It was a PTSA meeting with local school officials there. The superintendent at one point saying what he's watching out for now is making sure that other immigrant students in the school, that there's not a backlash against them in the school system. It seems like there are a lot of crosswinds here, people very passionate about this. Do you worry that a case like this is so upsetting and shocking to people that it drives them further apart rather than us coming together to try to kind of find some kind of solutions to handling, which is, you know, a massive problem in this country?
First of all, we need to protect our young women and our little girls, and especially when they want to use the restroom or be in schools, they need to be protected. The second thing is that I do think this is right, Shannon, which is I've been one who have said, look, as a Republican, I want to make sure that we have an immigration policy that's welcoming. But what I've realized over the years is that part of that is we have glossed over this huge problem with crime committed by people who are here illegally. I am convinced that until we take the appropriate steps to deport these folks, to detain these folks, to convict these folks, and run over these mayors who are standing in the way, we will not be able to get to the broader question of the bigger questions that Dennis Kucinich brings up on our immigration policy. Until we take care of the criminal element, we are stuck.
I don't think we want to conclude, though, however, that all undocumented persons are violent criminals.
Yes,
we have to deal with the violent criminals.
Right, and nobody wants to suggest that. A good point, Congressman. We want to make that clear.